on? Hi everyone, it's Donelle McAdams, and I'm coming to you today at 2 p.m. for our live and with Sew Steady and Westerly Templates. And so today I have put up a handout. It's on the Westerly site, it's also on the Sew Steady site, and it's on my site, All Things Quilting and Sewing with Donelle McAdams. So it's just a one-page handout. We're going to talk about designing stars, and this is what the handout's going to look like. So you might have looked at that. If you've downloaded it already, you might have looked at that and said, oh no, I don't think I want to be involved in this. But yes, you do, because it's really easy, but I want to show you how we do that. So I'm going to show you last week's project first. So if you were with me last week, I did post some finished pictures, but I wanted to show you exactly how it looked when it finished up and what I used where, and explain a little bit to you, because sometimes it's hard to figure it out in the pictures. So you can see around the outer edges is where, now remember, this is a variegated thread that I used, and so it looks like this part of that flower is not there, but it actually is, because it's just a darker part of the variegation. But I had some phone calls this week asking, I don't remember what you did from here to here. That is the Spinifex 4, the same template that I used here. I just used one side of it, rotated it around, and did the other to get this going. Now, as you remember last week, I showed you at the beginning, which was kind of a little bit of a mistake on my part, but I showed you how you could start, come over here, and then change templates to the mini Spinifex 4 and do this one, and you on. And you can do that, so you could go all the way around and not really have to stop and tie everything. But for beginners, I think it's better if you just do the little squiggle that goes back and forth with the Spinifex 4 and then go back with the small one and put those in. So that would be totally your decision. I did want you to see a corner here finished up, so you can see how that comes in. I showed you how that was done, and it almost looks like it's just the last petal of the flower, so that we pulled that together so that it worked okay. And then I decided to use my 4-inch heart, and I used the center of my 4-patch, and remember, this was a cheater fabric. It's not even really a 4-patch. It was a fabric that was already printed that way. But I used the center for my 4-inch heart, and then I went ahead and continued and had my circles in the corners centered off of my spot where the 2 patches or the 4 patches join. And then I put a 2-inch heart up here so that the bottom finished touching right at that circle. So there's a 2-inch heart in each one of these squares that join to that circle. So then I was thinking, okay, I need just a little bit more, and so I came down here with my 1-inch heart, and I did the 1-inch heart, and then I thought, well, I need one over here, so I stitched in the ditch over here and came around, and I was like, well, I can go all the way around. And truly, that is exactly how I thought it through. I didn't think it through any more creative than what I'm telling you. So then I just continued on down to the corner, went up to the next spot, did another 1-inch heart, and continued on all the way around back to down here. So when you turn this over, you can see that it's stitched all the way around, but then it stops and there's a little heart ever so often. So that did get finished up. I used my Quick Easy Miter binding tool to finish and bring the back to the front so that I get my perfect miters on the corner. And if you haven't seen that, there is a demo on my website under the videos, I think is the link, and I'll do that sometime in the future. I've done it several times in the past, but I just wanted you to know you can bring that back to the front and have a nice mitered corner. It's much easier than doing an add-on binding. So does anybody have any questions on that?
They're just saying it's really pretty. They're liking the finished product, so.
Well, thank you, and thank you for staying with me, because last week was one of those weeks when it seemed like every other thing was a oh, we're going to have to rethread or we're going to have to wind a bobbin or whatever, but in life, I guess that's kind of the way it happens. So I'll probably show this again at the end so those that join us late can see it, but for now, we'll start on today's project. Okay, so we're going to be doing designing stars for template quilting, and this is the handout that I sent you. And I apologize for being handwritten numbers, but trying to put that in there any other way was going to be extremely time consuming, and I thought it was better that I would get it done and go this way. So that's what I did. Now, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to do a little bit to show you how I started the designing part, and then I'm actually just going to jump right onto the project. So you've seen me use this before, and all it is one of my thumbtacks. The sticky side is on this side so I can reuse it. I'm just going to sit it right on there so that it stays down. I'm going to pull over just a piece of my paper, and this is just paper that you can get a roll of at, like, I don't know, Sam's or Costco or someplace like that. You might be able to get it even at Staples. And I was just looking for my center spot since I'd already put it on there. And so what I have done is I took my 12-inch, Megan, I'm sorry, it's a fur reach over there. But I took my 12.5-inch 8-point crosshair grid. And so I just set that down on the pen. Now you'll notice that the pen, it's going to move just a little bit, but if I hold this nice and steady, I'm not going to have any problems with it, okay? So I'm just going to hold this steady. And I just, in this case, just used an ink pen to draw all 8 of those lines. So those are all black lines, and I drew that right through here. Now, some of you I know have said, well, how do you keep it so that it's dead center in there? I don't. I just go on one side and draw that line. It's only going to be just a speck off anyway, and this is a designing thing. I'm not actually sewing on this. So I did those, and then I'm going to lay this on top of my fabric here just so you can see it a little bit easier. So you can see that on our crosshair grid, I have etched lines that are not spaces that we can actually put our pen or ink pen or pencil or whatever in. And so the one I'm going to use is the one that is exactly halfway between here and here, and it's that one there. So you'll notice there's one in every single spot there. So I'm just going to take my fabric off there so I can leave this in space for you. Put this back on, keep my lines lined up, and turn, and that's why I like to have my pen in there, and I'm turning it so that that etch line is now lined up with the lines that I've already drawn. So you can see that's all lined up, and I used a different color of pen. So in this case, I used a magenta color pen, and I drew those lines on there. Now obviously when I get to my fabric, unless I'm sewing on a light colored fabric, I'm not going to have a bunch of different lines. But in designing, this makes it easier. So if you look at the picture that you have on your handout, on that picture I just have a solid line for all 8 of the first lines, and I have a dashed line drawn for the other 8 lines. So I have the same amount of lines on there that I would on this one that I've already drawn. Now, I already put around here the ones that are marked at the 5.5, and all you see on that 5.5, it's all the way around except all the original lines is what I should say. So it's on all of these blue lines. But I left this here to show you I made a mistake in the markings. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to mark that out. I'm not going to try and do that here, but I'm going to give this a different marking. And so in this case, this one is actually on the, let me see here, on this black line, it's a straight line across. So I'm going to give that a straight line across on all of these lines because I don't want you to get confused with what I've done here. Oh, my pen's running out. Sounds like we're having internet issues. I hope that's not affecting you. Megan, is there another blue pen? It looks like this one is out. We'll just go this way. So this one is right. It's these four here. Okay, so I had already marked all of those. Now, the easy way to mark those is with the outer rim tool. Now, I've explained this a couple of times. I'm going to explain it again. If you are drawing a circle like with the old compass style, where you're going to put a thumbtack in the center here and then put an ink pen or something in this spot, you are going to use the blue side's numbers. So this arrow points to that spot. I'm using this side's numbers. If I'm going to mark just on the end of this, then I'm going to use the green side's numbers. Even though they're upside down, that's what I'm going to use. Well, I'm going to be using that green side. And what I want you to notice is, if you don't have something like that, you're going to use a ruler that measures something like this. And so this 5.5 that I've marked, I've put my 5.5 right there and then marked it. But if I'm going to use something like this, I don't have to measure every time. I just come back on this, the number that is double the 5.5. Because the way this is it's looking at it as a circle. So to get 5.5 inches out, that would be an 11-inch circle. So I'm going to come to the 11, put that on there. It helps if you get it on the right one. And then that's the way I would mark. So if you're using an outer rim tool to do these markings, you're going to double the measurement that you see in here. This is just a particular star. It doesn't mean it has to be this one. If you are using a simple ruler and you need a 5.5, there's 5.5. I put it right beside my thumbtack. My thumbtack is still very useful. And then I'm going to be able to get my marks. So I've marked those 5.5. Now I already went back, and you'll notice inside here I have one at the very center that's just like an oval dot that's 1 3/4 inch. And so that would be, if I doubled that, 3.5 inches. So if I'm using the outer rim tool, I need to use the one that I've put my green arrow on, and I need that to be 3.5 inches. So it's right here. I put that on there. I come around, and on all those purple lines, which on your picture is the dashed lines, I have put a little mark there. So that's how you would get ready to set this up.
And the question has come from Kathy, is where can she get that outer rim tool?
Well, the outer rim tool is part of the So Steady products, and it's called Circle Works Outer Rim Marker 18. And so you can get this from the people. I always encourage you to go to your local quilt store. If not, you go to my website and I'll get you helped out there. But again, I would prefer you go to your local quilt store first. Not that I don't want to help you, but I'm all about supporting the local quilt stores. So if you go to my Facebook page, All Things Quilting and Sewing with Donelle McAdams, there'll be a link there so that we can show you where you can find that. All right, so what I've got here on this, I've got you started on seeing how that would do. Now, I could spend the whole rest of the time marking this, but I can't sew that. So I'm going to just bring over here my piece of fabric and put it on the pen. Put it on the pen. And I leave the paper underneath there because if I need to move this, it moves easier with that paper under there. Now the pen obviously has a lot of uses, so I'm just going to set this on here to begin with. I'm going to use my iron-off chalk marker, and all of the first 8 are going to be solid lines. And remember, this all irons off. I'm going to rotate it like I showed you with the paper, and I'm going to line those up. And this time, I will do a dashed line. All right, so we've got the dash line in there. So now you can see what I've got. Now when I turn that, some of these lines don't go out as far as others, but in this design I don't think I need them any longer. So I'm not going to take any time right now to make them longer, but if I do, then I will extend them out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that center circle that we did with the 1 3/4. And so what I'm going to do is make that 3 1/2 on this little tool. There's 3, there's half, there's 4. So when I come around, I'm just going to I got to check my picture here. This is on just the dash lines. I almost did it wrong. So dash line, dash line, dash line. And I think you can see why the outer rim tool is easier, because I don't have to keep measuring it every time. Okay, so you can see I've got that on all the dash lines. I guess I need to mark that off. So I've got that on all the dash lines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look out here and I'm going to see those were all the same symbol. Okay, and then I'm going to look on the solid line straight up and straight down, and the first mark on that is 3 1/4. Now you'll notice it's not on the next line, it's not on this line, it's not on this line, so it's only on the 4 north, east, south, and west, and that's 3 1/4, and I doubt, see, that would be 6 1/2. So there's 6 1/2, and I'm going to put this on here. And this time when I get done with that, I'm going to make it more of a little oval, just so I can tell. I can tell where it's supposed to be, but I'm just kind of adding a little chalk to it around it so I don't get it confused.
So Lindy wants to know, you do the paper first and then you redo it on the material, so what do you use the paper for then?
I just did it for my designing on the paper.
So it's just a practice.
I had no idea where I was headed, so yeah, that's kind of the way you would say that is. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do with that, because that is the 3 1/4, that is the dot, I'm going to come out on the 4 1/4. Now, when you look at these, you're seeing them on the paper. I'm pointing to them and not showing them to you. Here's a 4 1/4. There's none on there this way, but there is on all 8 of the original lines. And some of you are going, oh, I can't keep up with this. Yes, you can. So you've got a picture. If I were to use this on this end, I am actually putting something in here and rotating it around like a compass. I can't get this in there. So the reason I've put my arrows on is because I know I use the numbers on this side when I'm using this end. So in this case, did I say 8 1/2? I think I did. So now there's my 8 1/2, and I can just rotate and make my marks. Now remember, I'm doing on all the solid lines this time, all of the solid lines. Now this is a whole lot easier when you can use colored markers. If you can use your colored markers, it's going to be a whole lot easier because you're going to be able to go from color to color. So now on the solid line, I've got one more at 5 1/2. You'll see 5 1/2 here is an X, but 5 1/2 over here is a straight line. So I'm going to do just the X's, which are on the 4 northeast, south, and west. So again, that is, have I already done that? I can't even remember. I might have. 11.5 on the green. 5.5 is 11 on the green. So here we go. Just here, I'm going to put a star, and that's an X. I'm only doing it on these 4. And so that's why it's a whole lot easier to have the outer rim tool. Even though you got to double that measurement, it gives you a better way to look at it. So now essentially I have all 4 of those finished. So I'm going to look at this one. I did the first one. Right here, 1 3/4. So now I've got to do a 2 3/4 and a 3.5. And that's going to be on all of these dashed lines. So I'm going to take this, and the next one I'm going to do is, stay with me, you guys, don't turn me off, okay? I've done the 1 3/4, so now I'm doing the 2 3/4, which if you do your math is 5.5, I think. Help me. 2 3/4 is 5.5, right? And so I'm putting this one here, and let's see what this is supposed to be. This is a straight line on all of the dashed lines.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing your comments about the internet issues. We are trying. It looks good on our end. I've had to go in and out of the Facebook to watch it. So if you get the repeating option, just swipe away on your Facebook and log back in. It seems to work after that.
We just had a big storm go through, so we were really concerned whether we were going to be able to go live. So bear with us. All right, the next one is 3.5, and it's going to be an X. So 3.5 is 7. So I'm putting my measurement on 7, and this is going to be an X. So I'm putting 1 through, and then my X. I'm going here, and my X. Straight, make it an X. Straight, make it an X. All on the dashed lines. I kind of messed that one. There we go. So now you can see I've got stars. This one is supposed to be right here. That's the center of it. I'm going to make sure. Yep. So now I've got these two completely matched. Now I'm working on this one, okay? So on this one right here, inches, which would be 14. Are we back on? Somebody give us a thumbs up. Anybody a comment? Are we on? Are we on? Somebody give us a comment.
Okay, we're getting thumbs up, so we're going to continue on.
Okay.
This will be recorded and put on after we're done.
Yeah, so if you miss something, you're going to get that. So at this point, I need to put this on 14, you guys, because we just went to cellular data, so we should be good. So this is a star, and this is going to be on just those diagonals again. Uh-oh, not that one, Donelle. I wish some of you guys could yell at me right through the screen, because you probably saw me doing that and going, no, not that one. All right, so now when we start to stitch this, we have got our markings on here, and I will be looking back to see what I've got here. But the first ones that we're going to connect are our stars. So we will connect this one to this one, to this one, back to this one, back to this one. So the stars will make one star going to begin with, okay? So we're going to take this over now. I may have to come back and make a few more lines. I don't remember. But I'm going to take this over to the machine. We've got everything set up. For those of you that have been with us for a while, you know the routine. I've polished my table. I have my grid glider on here. This is a cling. I've put my bobbin in, got my foot on, and I'm just going to pick where I'm going to start, and I'm going to get my straight edge. Now, I have to set my machine, so on this particular one, it's just a couple of buttons, so just give me a second. Okay, we're ready to go. And I'm going to start right down here, put my foot down, pull my thread up. And I know this is going to be a short thread, so I need to find my tweezers, and I'm going to pull that through. So when I get that pulled through, I'll put this back in place, put my needle down. And remember, I said in this case we're going from star to star. Now this is why, don't let me get too far away because I'm using that. This is why I like to be able to use my spacing gauge, and this is a good one to teach on. Because you would think, okay, why can't I just go to that spot? No, you can't just go to that spot because you have to be 1/4 of an inch away. So now I'm coming out to that spot there. I'm stopping in that line. This is my spacing gauge. Remember, this is this color so that I can teach you how to use it and you can see it. And I'm going to put this right behind that spot so that there's 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to come to this star. And when I say star, it's just the marking that I've made. I'm coming to this point right here, so I'm measuring my 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to stop at that point. Now, do I have to turn? No, but can I turn? Yes. So why not? You know, it's easier that way. So I'm finding my mark. Find the center here. And for those of you that may be new, I set my machine on a medium speed. And let me interrupt that for just a second. Remember, I marked this. I just wanted to know where it was, but that's the spot I'm going to. So I've got that going right there. And this one, the star is out here. Now remember, if you were on a light colored fabric, you could use your colored iron-off markers. Just make sure you spray them with a layer of either Best Press or the June Taylor Starch Savvy. Press it, spray it again, press it again, and then all of those lines will iron right off with the iron-off markers. And if you haven't seen a demo of that, I did one the other night, and actually at the end took the time to put it in the freezer so you could see the lines come back on the sample that wasn't. So that's on my All Things Quilting and Sewing with Donelle McAdams. That's on my Facebook page. It's about a 6-minute video. You could go back and you could watch that yourself so that you could see what goes on with that.
Peggy likes your eyes on your straight ruler.
Well, the reason it has eyes on it is because I got tired of hunting it, so now I said it can find me. I know that doesn't work, but it's my story and I'm sticking to it. So you can see by making these stars on those lines, it's easy enough for me to follow and get back to the beginning. And I'm coming right back here. Now I'm going to take the time to show you this because right there's where I need to be. So when I measure my 1/4 of an inch to allow for my foot space, I should be able to get right back to where I started. So there we are, right back to the starting point. I'm going to go ahead and raise my needle and raise my foot. And I'm going to pull this out and cut it off.
Can you explain your little sandwich there? Because they want to know what kind of batting you're using.
I have, I always use Request, Quilter's Dream Request. And so that's what I've got here. If I want a thicker quilt, I might use 2 layers of that. They also have, obviously, thicker bats. I can't remember what the name of the heavier one is, but I like the Request, especially for what I'm doing. I'm going to be using what's called a cinch side threading needle, and I'm going to just pull that into the side there, and I'm going to pull it up and take this thread to the back. And I want to be really careful when I'm doing this because otherwise I'm going to make my chalk marks look just like somebody tried to erase the whole thing, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to pull these threads through. I've got one that's being just a smidge stubborn. There we go. And so what I have found, and you might have heard me say I tie them in one big knot, I actually like now to split this. Just after doing it several times, I like to split it and get 2 in one hand and 2 in the other hand, and then tie a knot. It actually buries a whole lot better than if you just tie one big knot. So I'm crossing this over, getting these threads. And so now when I take this through, I'm going to just pull this right to the spot, bury that needle. That felt like I went too deep, that's why I backed off. There we go. And now when I pull this through, I can pop that knot right in there so the knot is gone. And so that makes it so much easier to tie the knot, bury the threads, and then it's all done and you can move on to the next step. Now I'm going to tell you something because I'm just one of those people who likes to tell you little hints. I was cleaning out some drawers the other day and found all of those calendars that come to you from your insurance people and the realtors and whatever, and on the back of them they have these little magnets. I ripped all of those off, and so now I just leave them lay and they hold my needles right where I need them. So right over here on the side of my table, my needles are held by that magnet. Makes it so easy. All right, so we've got our outside star finished. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next line in. So on this line, if you're looking at this like so right here, we are going to be, whoops, let's go this way. That's the way I drew it.
I do have a question about those needles before you go on. They want to know what size of cinch needle that was.
It only comes as one package that I know of, and it's just got all different sizes in it. So I use the large, and the next to the large needle's the easiest. So yeah, it comes in a package like that. So what I'm going to be doing the next with this is I'm going to be taking this particular spot right here, the next one in on all the lines. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like. It's just the next one in. So I'm going to start right over here. I don't usually start in the same place or anything. I start in a different spot. And I'm going to put that needle down, bring the needle up, bring the foot up. Now this is going to be different because I cut my thread out here, so I've got that long of a thread underneath there. So I can do what's called flossing. So I'm going to pull this thread and just take the other end and go underneath, and that will pull up that bottom thread. So that way you've got control of them very easily. And I'm setting this right down in that spot. I'm getting this back. Don't get confused. We don't want to go there. We're going clear up here. And so I'm going to set this at that angle. Now the reason I'm doing this angle, I'm going to turn this so you can see it. The reason I'm doing this angle is because we want the flat side of our spacing gauge to match up to the flat side of our ruler. If I was over here, look how much direction that changes as it comes around when it's at the flat side. So you have to pay attention to how you're lining that up if you're going to get it to that spot. So we're coming out to here, and we're going to stop right there. I'm going to rotate this. That one was already done, so this is where we're going. Now those of you that were like freaking out when you saw this a while ago, thinking I'll never be able to do this, just remember, if you do those outer ones as the stars, once you get those connected, then you're just working your way in. So I'm going to take this one. And there's nothing magic about this star. It's just one that I drew up and decided that I really liked it because of the way that it worked around there and had some different things going on. You can create your own. And you just have to remember that sometimes the measurements kind of seem a little crazy in order to get it to be the shape that you want it to be. So it may be a matter of drawing first and measuring second. But I'm just going to the next location in that I marked. And I know you guys can do this. And so Megan, make sure that you pull out my iron there and give it, I think it's right underneath. I keep my little iron right beside me on a TV tray. And you just turn this completely around like that. Because I want you to see, when we get all of these stitches done, what it actually looks like.
I was trying to find who posted it, but I can't. But somebody said they want to use this on a graduation quilt.
It'd be a good thing. I don't know about your state, but my daughter is a school teacher, and they named every teacher Teacher of the Year this year. So I would say every graduate is Graduate of the Year. So I'm pulling these out again and pulling that over, and I'm just going to keep them out of the way and pull this bottom one out of the way. And we're going to then go to the very center. And since I have not chalked very well there, I need my chalk marker here. And we're going to get our center.
Which at some point we did have a question on, do you have a tool or way to refill that? So we might want to come back and hit that question.
If you'll remind, well, I can stop right now and tell you. What I do with this is this top comes off. So when you first get them, empty the chalk out of it because it's not iron off chalk. And then get the iron off pounce chalk. It comes in a little baggie. And mine looks like this now because I put it in a better bag. Never ever unzip the inside bag. You'll notice that I've clipped off the corner and used it out of the bottom, and then I retaped it. But what you're going to do is, I'm not going to pull this clear out, but it couldn't be because of a mess, but I've made myself a little paper funnel that fits down into this end, and then I just put it in there and I use like a wooden skewer or something like that to tap it down in there. Now I know some people get a straw, like a drinking straw, that is smaller than this opening, and they just set it down in there and then they pull out a little bit and put it in. I think that's a little more time consuming than this way, but I guarantee you the first time you do it, you'll probably have more on you than you want. So I would tell you that follow what I said there and it'll be a lot less hassle. All right, so what we're going to do now is we only have one spot left. And what I'm going to do on each line, So what I'm going to do is I'm starting in the very center, needle down, needle up, foot up. Pull it, because remember I can floss that. Put needle back or foot back down and needle down in that spot. And what I'm going to do with this is all I'm going to be doing is stitching straight out to that point and back. So I'm going to stitch out and I'm going to stitch back. I'm going to go to the next line. It's short, but I'm going to stitch out to that point and back. Now, the reason I chose to do this on this one today is because I want to talk a little bit about threads. Because right now today I'm using a 40 weight thread. And so I can stitch out to this and back, and it's not going to be too heavy. But if I went to a heavier weight thread, such as a 30 weight, this would get a bit heavy. So I would need to make sure, I'm going to get this lined up because it's a little off. There we go. I would want to make sure that I checked on my weight of my thread before I did a double stitching, because those heavier weight threads, you do a double stitching and it can look a little gnarly, especially if you use a variegated. So just make sure you test if stitching over is going to look okay. Now, about threads, because I've had a lot of questions on this week too, is what threads do you piece with? I piece on the top with a 60 weight and on the bottom with an 80 weight. You can use both 60 on top and bottom. You just want to find what works for you that allows you to stitch over. So like last week when we did our quilt and we had seams that we had to go over, we want to make it so it just goes right over. When I first started doing this, I just picked up some quilts that I had already worked with, and I had a mess because the seams were stitched with regular 40 or 50 weight thread, and they were just way too heavy to go over. So that's why I recommend stitching with 60 weight or 80 weight thread when you're piecing. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you why I stopped right here. Is I've done exactly half of these, and I want to make sure that the one coming this way lines up with the one that's going that way. I don't want them to be a little bit off. So I'm going to right now go ahead and stitch one stitch over. Let me go back just, there we go. And I want to check from the back just like I do in the front. So see what I've got here in the back is perfect, but look at this front. We got a little bit of an issue there. So that's when I get my longer ruler, because it's the same thickness as our low shank templates, and I work from the back and the front and pretty much work with finding it equal. So now I'm stitching out here and stitching to the back. Now if you don't have a longer ruler, you can do it with the shorter one. It's just a little easier to have this longer ruler so that you can work with that so that you get it so that they're even. And don't get going on it so much that you forget about the spots you're stitching to. I'm going to be stitching clear out to here. So I'm going to make sure that I've got that. And now I'm going to stitch out to this spot and back. And for those of you that get all hung up on that extra stitching in the middle there, don't let it bother you. It's not that big of a deal. We can't go in and out of that spot in this case 32 times, I think. 16 times 2, yeah. So that's a lot of times. You can't
If
do
they
that.
felt like it, they could embellish it or something. If
Oh
they
yeah,
really
a
felt
star
like it.
especially. You could put little stones on this. You could do all kinds of things. But I know that the first time I did this type of thing, I didn't measure in the back when I was coming around the second time, and I was really disgusted with myself when it was finished. So we've got a couple more here to do, and then we'll press it off so that you can see it.
would also be really cool in your template quilting for the echo that you did.
Well, you could actually have taken this whole inside out and then put these lines in. So a lot of things you could do there. One more right here, straight over here, straight over there, out to that line, back to the center. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise my needle and we're going to pull this out. And I'm going to lay it flat over here so that you can see it before we press the lines off, so that you can see what that looks like. So let's take it over. Well, right here is fine. If you can get it there, Megan. So now you can see that we've got our star. We used our measurements, and then all we did was follow back in. After we did all of the star, we just went to the next one and used that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pressing board right here and get my iron and press all my marks off. And our star will kind of come to life without all of those marks. Now, someone said they were planning to use maybe this for something that they wanted. You could even, you want to get me a piece of template plastic out of the cabinet there, Megan? You could even make this on template plastic and actually have it so you could mark through and not have to measure every single one of those. This is template plastic, and you can actually draw what you need and then use what's called an awl or something sharp. I have one here. The end of mine is sharp, and I'll show you at the end down here. I could just take this and push a hole in it like that, and so that way you could actually chalk right through that and have all of those marks. So you can see what we've got here. I really like the idea of, let's take this out from underneath so I can move it. Look what the difference is on that when we set this on point. Is that on point for them?
Yeah, I can't, there we go. Now it's on the screen.
Okay, so you can see what the difference is when you set that on point. So she says I need to tell you about the iron. This is my little steam fast iron. It does steam, and it has an opening right here where you can put that water in. You don't need steam to remove the chalk. I usually leave this on the side here. I have my silicone iron mat that I just rest this on. This iron doesn't turn off all day. So all of those regulations of all those regular irons that turn off, this one will stay on. So like I said, I don't know if we can swing around here and see our little setup, but I just have a little...
Oh, some of them have probably been waiting to see this for a while. So
I'm
hold on.
sure. So this is just my little TV tray. Picked it up at Aldi's. I've got my wool mat, got my silicone mat, and my iron. And so I just have this. You'll notice it's a little shorter than my sewing table, so when I'm not using it, I just can slide it. Well, it's actually underneath my cutting table over there, and I just slide it underneath there. And so it makes it really nice to be able to have that ready to go all the time, so that when you're finished, and we're at a different height, can they see it better there maybe? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that you can see what that looks like finished. So just imagine what you've done here. You could go back and put little rhinestones, the little ones that you actually use the rhinestone setter on, and that would really make that pretty. And again, just think of it changing it to a different direction.
Some of them are saying just different threads in the middle or different colors.
Oh yeah,
really pretty.
Lots of different things that you can do to make this design. So I just wanted to show you another way how to do the star. Also a way to use that, you want to hand it to me again, Megan, my outer rim tool. And this is a tool that Leonie West designed, and I'm just going to tell you, until I sat down and figured out this side is using these numbers, This side is using this side's numbers, and that's why I put my ruler stickers on there like that. Those of you that know me, I use ruler stickers a lot. And so when I pick this up, I know which end I'm looking at and how to measure. And so again, back on our handout, the handout had the numbers on it that it would be if you were actually using a regular ruler. So like in this case, when I'm measuring out 5.5, I have to double that if I'm using the outer rim tool. So you'll just want to make a note on your handout to double the number if you're using the outer rim tool. So any questions, any other comments?
They like it on point because it reminds them of Christmas and the Bethlehem star.
I think the same thing, and it's kind of an accident. Didn't even notice that until I got finished with it here and turned it that way. You can see that in the center we do have, once I tie my knot, we will have a little bit, but that's not bothering me. And so that way you can feel assured that you don't have to like start here and do this whole thing, because if you do that, then you end up back down here. So that's why I always started in the middle and went out each time, but then wanted to make you aware of lining those up when they come back across. So real quickly, if there aren't any other questions on that, I want to show just one more time the project from last week. I'll just move this over and we'll just do it right here. This is the project that kind of caused me some confusion, but obviously I stuck with it, and I hope you will too. And this is where I used the 4-inch hearts. I based it in the center for those of you that heard me at the beginning. And then this one is the Spinifex 4 from the sampler set 1. And as I used the Spinifex 4 from sampler set 1 to do this around the outer edge, you saw it's documented there. You can go back and watch it, how I designed that. And then I used the mini Spinifex 4. And for those of you that don't remember or weren't with us, this is a variegated thread. So when this one looks like it's got 5, but this only looks like it's got like 3.5, it's because the variegation went into the darker colors. And then I used the 1-inch heart here and a 2-inch simple circle here and the 2-inch heart in the middle. So on this, I will tell you this one, I went around and then I decided to come over here and do this, which made me decide to go all the way stitching in the ditch. And I will tell you, stitching in the ditch with your 6-inch straight edge is super, super easy. So I've had people say, oh, you haven't seen my ditches, they're not straight. Well, you know what? Not all ditches are, but here's what I'm going to tell you. When you lay this like this, of course it's out 1/4 inch. You can kind of pull a ditch and make it as straight as you need to make it. So you can do it. Because on the back side, you can see how that heart shows up there. And then, of course, all of that outer edge quilting there that I did the stitch in the ditch. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope we've shown you something that will trigger your creative juices to get going on something different than you might have. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the comments, because I do go back and read those and I try to answer them. If at any time something seems confusing to you, please let me know. Thanks again for joining me. I'm Donelle McAdams. Megan's here helping me, and we sure enjoy bringing you these presentations. Bye for now.